If you follow video game development over the past 20 years, you'll likely notice that physics and mechanical interaction have been degrading. Few games feature objects that react to touch, burn, break, or respond to player action. Few allow interaction with enemies beyond shooting, fighting, or stealth skills. Yellow Brick Games has put this interactivity at the forefront, alongside the standpoint promises of the engineering story and deep lore. The studio pledged to showcase a physical sandbox through diverse magical abilities in their debut project. They somewhat succeed at this, but what's wrong with the Mike Ledlow's Dragon Age Origin creators' new game? Let's find out in our review. The story and world feels uninspired. The main character Bryn is a weaver, a mage who can interact with magical essence. Together with other weavers, she activates an ancient robot in a cave near the Vale, a massive wall separating the inhabited part of the world from wild lands. Due to the past magical catastrophe, humans and other intelligent fur-like creatures were forced to relocate. The beaten, wounded team finds itself beyond the Vale. The game revolves around exploration and simplified survival. The heroine examines ruins, collects resources, and tries to fight intelligent beings. The narrative progresses through radio dialogues with teammates. The setting is a magical post-apocalypse. The action takes place near the abandoned city of the Dinevron, birthplace of the Weaver culture. The dialogue in-game is co-created by one of the Dragon's Age creators, meets a certain standard, but offer nothing particularly interesting. Conversations are slightly pompous, somewhat bland, and absolutely empty. This disappointing situation stems from a weak characters. Only Sebastian, a large anthropomorphic green bear who helps at the forge, has a noticeable personality trait. His paranoia creates the illusion of life within the team's relationship. The only standout feature in the dialogue system is the first-person responses. Options include things like support and say I'm scared too, or criticize for panic and remind of my duties, but there's no consequences. The game honestly warns on a loading screen. Dialogue choice doesn't affect the story, only details of the heroine's character. Yellow Brick Games emphasize environment interaction and elemental magic. From the start, you get an ice cream. Soon telekinesis appears, and fire magic becomes available later. The ward and heroine react adaptively to abilities. You can cross burning areas by creating an ice path, melt ice walls with fire, grass burns and fire spreads uncontrollably. Enemies are more effectively defeated with flying rocks than swords, and so on. However, this doesn't form a cohesive system and feels more like isolated attempts to the immersive elements. The problem lies in the empty world and uninteresting enemies. Location resembles famous Japanese PlayStation 2 era design. There are only enemies, throwable objects, and destructible objects containing resources. There is no nature or simulation of the life. There's no open world either. A central base with a teleporter allows Bryn to choose location to visit during different parts of the day. The day is divided into 3 periods: morning, day, and night, with enemy and item placement changing in each period. The explorable areas are modest, usually small squares with a wasteland forest or other biomes. The map helpfully marks all important places, which are also duplicated in the quest journal. There are no way to leave side zones except back to the camp, either on foot or via teleportation item. The second major feature developers emphasize is large enemies. Each location has one giant monster that drops available resources for upgrading exciting magic or providing new abilities. You need to climb this creature Shadow of the Colossus style and attack in protected areas. While initially epic, this becomes repetitive by the third or fourth encounter. Regular enemies are similarly dull. They can be flying or walking, beasts or robots, elements or arms, but fighting them is boring. They absorb elemental damage excessively, the bow is weak and melee combat feels unpleasant. Both Bryn and enemies magnificently slide towards each other before each strike. You endure all this for resources. There's no experience in eternal Strands, and all progression happens through crafting new equipment or reforging old items. Resources can also be used to upgrade the camp, magical abilities, and brew potions. Resources are so important that losing them is the only punishment for death. Despite the apparent variety of the possibilities, there's nowhere to apply them. If the open world is clearly boring and empty, the developers don't set interesting challenges either. A basic example similar to Breath of the Wild: you need to reach an ice area to find something there, while Zelda require actual preparation for such a journey. In Eternal Stars, the required item is so close that a couple of health potions will suffice. Despite all criticism, you can get absorbed in Yellow Brick's game's title. The gameplay is simple and understandable, with repetitive and gradual development that push you towards the flow state, accompanied by a pleasant music from a journey composer Austin Winstory. The game gives you plenty of physical abilities and huge enemies to climb as advised, but in reality it's a derivative and simply boring game assembled from a poorly copied mechanics of other, much more interesting project. So to sum up all of this, worth playing for is some interactivity with the world through abilities, huge bosses to climb, and pleasant music from Journey's composer. What ruins the experience is backtracking and death worlds that are uninteresting to explore, staggering combat with mediocre animation and balance punch enemies, and boring character and empty plot. So conclusion is Eternal Stance delivers on both advertising features, providing numerous physical abilities and giant enemies to climb, but in fact it's a derivative and simply boring game, assembled from poorly copied mechanics of other, much more interesting project. While not completely terrible in every aspect, finding completion reason to play it will be just as difficult. Thank you for watching. Please try it by yourself.